And welcome in, everyone. I'm Bill Rohn, along with head coach Kim English. This is the George Mason Men's Basketball Coaches Show, live from the Capitol Ale House here in Fairfax, Virginia. Our final episode as we wrap up the 2022-23 season. We thank everybody watching out there and also everyone who joined us here at the Capitol Ale House. Lots to get to on our final show of the season. Malik Henry, the junior forward, will join us a little bit later on the show. We'll take a look at next season. But, Coach, I think we have to start with some really good things that your team did down the stretch. Longest overall win streak since 2016-17, first 20-win season since 2016-17. Kind of put a bow on what that last month of the season was like for you guys.
Yeah, the guys really, came together, and started playing for each other, for the name on the front of their jersey. And it was cool to see, that they really adopted a lot of the things we have been preaching since day one. There's been some continuity in our group, and it all came together at the right time. And all of it was without our second leading scorer. Getting ticket games back helped a ton. Getting Ronald healthy helped a ton. And but just really proud of the group for that, for the stretch from after Duquesne to before St. Louis. When the score was 25-25 against St. Louis, we lost all of that for a little bit. But really proud of the group for the way they handled that 7-game stretch. Now it's just about making that feeling, to be more and more familiar.
Was there one instance, practice, moment where you thought, hey, we may have turned the corner? Was it just getting back in and watching film of Duquesne?
Yeah.
A lot of times coaches will point to, oh, I saw this in this game, or I saw this moment in this practice where it finally seemed to click. Looking back, was there a moment that you go, hey, I think that's when we may have figured it out a little bit?
I went back and I watched in one of my old college games after the Duquesne game. I don't remember which one it was, but I was taken aback by our huddles. After every dead ball, every foul, we just were like glued to each other. In the Duquesne game, it was a back screen play where someone didn't yell out to the guy being screened, and it was a screen. They got like a lob, and I just was taken aback. I was like, we aren't together as we need to be. So we literally the next day in practiced huddles on both ends of the court. We practice when there's a dead ball, when there's a free throw, coming together, getting together. And we got a little closer. We started focusing on that. We always help our teaming up whenever they fall down. But the camaraderie of the group, the togetherness of the group got better. And I don't think there's any accident that our defense also got better.
You guys finished one game out of being tied for second. So looking at, you were picked 5th in the preseason, that's where you ended up. So got to expectations, at least from the media, but one game away from being the number 2 seed in the conference. So looking back, how would you assess year 2 of your coaching tenure?
I don't know if the media or coaches picked us 5th, but
I think it was a combination of both.
Yeah. It was to our standards, it's a disappointment. We want to consistently finish in the top 4 of this league. We want to compete for a league championship. We want to play in the NCAA tournament. And whenever we fall short of that, it's a disappointing season to our standards. Finishing one game out of second, you think of we were up 8 with 3 minutes to go at St. Louis, the home game against George Washington, the home game against St. Joe's. Really, really disappointing, crushing losses. And, that's what keeps me up at night, thinking about those games, finishing those games. Now, the bright side is I think some of our tough losses over the 2 years here kind of benefited us down the stretch in some of our close wins. Last season we were 6-11 in 2 possession games. This season we were 8-6. So you flip that to be on the positive side of 5-0, 500. But, it's about keep taking those steps with our returners. Ronald, Malik, Ticket maybe, those guys, taking the next step in another season.
Well, how about for you? Year 2, you've talked about all the time about how much you learned in your first season. looking back at it, I know it's still fresh because it's not that far removed from the end of the year, but what did you learn about yourself and being a coach in year number 2?
That's a great question, and I don't fault anyone for ever asking it, but like I could never answer that question in one sitting.
Sure.
You know, because it's not one thing that is coaching college basketball. It's so many things. It's recruiting, it's in the game, it's managing personalities, it's practice, it's game planning, it's learning the league, it's learning non-conference opponents, it's scheduling. It's such a good question, and there is an answer, but like I wouldn't know where to begin answering that question.
What do you think the difference was in the 2 possession games? Do you think there's something that you learned or something how you figured out, whether it was handling late game situations?
Sometimes it is things. It's lineups. You know, sometimes it's when to call a timeout, when not to call a timeout. It's the success of some plays versus the success of another play. Sometimes it's what to actually talk about in the huddle of a timeout to make sure the player knows exactly the type of pass you're wanting him to make. You know, it's so many things that it's I don't know. That's maybe a bad answer, but it's so many things in so many different areas that, you know, sadly you only can learn going through it. But the biggest thing is players make plays. You know, players make plays. That's the difference. Yeah. If it's missing a free throw at the end of the game versus making a free throw at the game, if it's making a big field goal, if it's getting a big stop, if it's defensive rebounding, the players ultimately make the plays to win those games. Now, when we lose those games, I take the onus all on me. What could I have done better? What could I have explained better? What could I have subbed better? But when we win them, it's because of our guys. They stepped up and made the plays and made me look good.
I find it interesting, and I don't remember which game it was this weekend because I watched a ton of them, but they were talking about a coach taking a timeout, and the announcer was saying, the analyst was saying, well, there are timeouts that are X's and O's, and then there are timeouts that are about your motivation. Have you found kind of that balance of you knowing, okay, I need to take a timeout here because we need to draw something up because they're doing something that we need to address?
There's some philosophical timeouts, you know, momentum. If you have a big lead, right, you catch that lead, you put a number in your head, okay, if their momentum takes, if we're up 18, and I'll say, okay, my number's 11. If they go on a 7-0 run and take the game to 11, I'm calling a timeout there. I got to get better at, there are some, I've done it some, but there are some egregious errors in the first half of a game where I think you need to call a timeout. And it's nothing, it is about X and O's, I guess, but it's about making a big deal or making a big substitution. I wish I would have watched in the St. Louis game a few times now. There are a few plays I wish I would have done it earlier to get someone out and to address an issue. But yeah, and late game, absolutely. It's about X's and O's. It's about getting a better free throw shooter in the game. You know, it's a tight game. It's about getting the exact shot you want in the game. You know, and then sometimes it's kind of gamesmanship. You know, I'm not a big believer in defensive timeouts. You know, like if we score, I'm not really I like to see if the other coach will call a timeout, and that's kind of the thing. You know, sometimes we had a game against, I think at Dayton, you know, we drew up a play. I felt good about us getting a shot, and I said I want to call a timeout because, you know, Anthony Grant is such a good coach. I didn't want to give him a chance, you know, to have something drawn up quick at us. And I said, if we score, I want to call a timeout. And Nate Thomas said, don't call it. He'll call it. And Coop or Ronald, someone scored, and I kind of looked down at their bench, and he doesn't call a timeout. So I kind of look at Nate like, and they dribbled across half court and then called a timeout.
Right.
So we were good. We had to get our defensive lineup in and talk about what we could see. But, yeah, there's some gamemanship. At the end of the game are much more X's and O's timeouts. In the flow of the game, it's much more, you know, momentum.
Do you feel you're getting more comfortable in kind of knowing when to pick your spots for those type of things?
Yeah, for sure. But, again, before you become a head coach, everything you have it's philosophical, actually. Yes, you've had instances where you're sitting there on a lot of benches and been there for a lot of games, but it's different when, it's your call if you want to call it or not. So, yeah, being in those moments, having those things. We lost a game against UMass at home last season where I wish I would have called a defensive timeout to remind the guys about playing defense with a high hand. Now I think after me being their coach for 2 years, hearing have a high hand on shooters is like ingrained in their mind, where that mistake has happened a lot less this season than it did a year ago.
Well, you go back to the James Madison game a year ago, and that was one of the ones that you've harped on since then. That you got to close out.
We talked about that, and I think that even occurred from the Maryland game before. They've heard, the guys have heard these stories time and time again. We didn't break down Maryland after watching that game because I was so ready to move on to JMU, but it was some errors late in the Maryland game that I think could have helped us have a high hand when we're up one with 30 seconds against JMU, but we didn't. But for the rest of that season and some this season, I know when our big switch on guards, they're thinking about that game. Right. I know Malik Henry's thinking about it. I know Josh Aduro, who's seen it, is thinking about it. So, if a lesson can be learned from a loss, then there is value to it.
We'll have to ask Malik if he does remember that now every time he's switching onto a guard.
What he should do if he's guarding a guard late in the game and we switch. Ask him.
Ronnie Polite had a great junior year for you. This is his second year, and I know you as a former guard and as a head coach, the cliche is always that the point guard is kind of an extension of the coach. That's the old saying. So give me your assessment. Twice this year he went for 22. Late game situations, he seems to be the guy that you trust trying to get to the rim, or if he doesn't get there, finding somebody else to get to the rim. Made a huge defensive play, I believe in the Dayton game, got the steal late in that game. So tell me about Ronnie Polite and how he's made the leap from last year, starting out in November, to now a year and a half later.
Well, it's like a movie in my mind. I remember when we first get here, I asked him, is he going to get in the portal? Was he committed to Mason? And he just said, nah, I'm good. And then I got to meet him in our first few practices, and I remember being impressed with his physicality and his strength. Then he had surgery, and he was never really himself all that first season. But he had moments and flashes. He had a moment in practice where he absolutely strapped up Deshaun Schwartz. And Deshaun Schwartz, 6'7", 200, whatever. I mean, he just he put the clamps on him, and it caught my eye. And then in the American game, the Georgia game, maybe against Navy. Did you play against Navy? Well, American, Georgia. He had these moments where he just gets a look in his eye that is trustworthy. He's always looking for me. Last season against Fordham in D.C., he was great. And then this season, he got healthy, and he was phenomenal, and just have so much trust in him. And I think he's going to take another step and really solidify that he's one of the best point guards in the Atlantic 10.
I know you will not make excuses for injuries because you've talked about it all year long, that nobody feels sorry for your team when you have injuries. No. But it has to feel a little frustrating that this season in A-10 play, for exactly 20 minutes, you had a full roster. Because Tickett gets hurt in the first Richmond game at the end of December. Yeah. He comes back, and the game before he's going to return, you lose Victor Bailey. It's got to be a little frustrating to realize that you went through and had a pretty good year in the A-10 and never had a full, complete roster to compete with.
Yeah, it would have been great to have VJ's shooting, especially down the end. Would have been great to have Tickett shooting and defense, throughout. And, and VJ was starting to get better. VJ had a really good game against UMass, I believe, and then had one of his best practices of the year heading into Loyola. So, yeah, it's disappointing, but what are you going to do? You're not going to – we have a saying in our program, so what, now what? And we talk about our mindset. I think I have to be the biggest example of that in my response to I've never gone into a game in my life not expecting to win. High school, college, or NBA, I've never, ever, ever sat down not expecting to win, not thinking we had a strategy to win. And that's with or without players. And for our guys, it was when Tickett went down with his hand, it was surgery, and let's get better. Let's get ready. and he was incredible. When he was out, he was incredible. And getting to watch him work to get back and him just to step right in and perform and help lead us to 7 straight. Really, really, really proud of our group, proud of Ronald, proud of Josh, proud of Coop. Coop never missed a game in his George Mason career. You know, proud of Malik. Those guys all have taken, steps and found a way to be competitive and fight. And you said 1 game out of second, 4 games out of first.
Update us on VJ. I mean, obviously he won't be back this year, but how's his hand?
Yeah, he could have played. If we would have beat St. Louis, he could have played in the semis against VCU. We went through the exact same process as Ticket. He worked his way back, and we just fell about 30 minutes short of being able to have him help us make a run to end the season.
Speaking of Ticket, the big question, and I got it asked a ton, and I don't have an answer for it, but he and Josh both would be able to come back, have a year of eligibility left. Do you have an update on when these guys may make their decision, if they have made their decision?
Yeah. I joined in the 1 more year chance during senior night, and I don't know. Ticket, he has this process. I think we'll hear a decision soon. From one or both of them. I have a dinner with Josh tonight and his family here, so we'll see.
All right, very good. Well, Coach, I'm going to let you take a break.
All right.
Our guest is here, so Malik Henry, the junior forward, is going to join us. But first, we want to thank the Capitol Ale House, the official host site for the Mason Basketball Coaches Show with head coach Kim English. Just a mile and a half from Eagle Bank Arena, the Capitol Ale House has local Virginia-inspired dishes and the largest selection of Virginia-brewed craft beer available. Malik Henry joins us next. From Longview, Texas, junior forward Malik Henry joining us. 32 games this year, 4 starts, 4.1 points, 2.7 rebounds. And as the folks at home saw in the video, Malik, a bunch of dunks this year as well. You had career highs in minutes, points, rebounds, a whole bunch of other stat categories. So first off, thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate you coming by. Career high 15. Let's start there at Loyola of Chicago. 3 different times this year you end up scoring 10 points a game. How comfortable are you now? 3 years of college basketball, 2 years with Coach English.
I'm a lot more comfortable. I mean, I trust the process, everything that we go through, everything that they talk about. I believe in everything that they say. So just going by that, it just made me feel even more comfortable.
We saw on the highlight thing, and you said to me, what is this, all dunks? When we were showing the highlights for the folks watching at home. Do you have a favorite dunk or play from the season? Is there one that sticks out that you look back and be like, yeah, that was a good one?
No inbounds play when we played Toledo. Whenever I had a little spark, and then Kim, it was after a timeout, Kim drew up this one play that we never talked about. And I actually heard you on the video from the highlights. And you was talking about the play, and I just thought it was an amazing play too, because the other team didn't have no clue about it. So,
my personal favorite was the one down at Richmond right before halftime, the tip in the end one. That was my favorite one there. How'd you get started playing basketball? I always ask the guys that. It's a typical question, but I'm always fascinated by guys how their journey started. So how old were you when somebody first put a basketball in your hand and you went, I like this?
It was really I was the youngest out of all my siblings, so everybody picked a sport. My brother did football and track. My oldest brother, he chose basketball, but he really wasn't passionate about it. So I said I want to do basketball too, and I actually started playing with other teams and stuff. So I would say I was around 5 years old whenever I chose basketball.
Do you remember any of your youth coaches that in particular that maybe you had a conversation with at some point, whether you were 10, 11, 12? How old were you when somebody finally said, you know what, this basketball thing could take you pretty far?
Actually, it was kind of late. It was whenever I got like high school, because it was my high school coach my sophomore year, when it was my first year on varsity. He actually like talked to me on the side, and then actually whenever I was playing AAU and stuff, like he had all these AAU coaches coming and reaching out to me and stuff. So like that's whenever I figured out like I can really take.
So you played 3 years of varsity basketball in high school. Still a 1,000-point scorer. It's pretty impressive. Most guys need 4 years of varsity ball to get there. So that's a pretty good accomplishment then.
Yeah.
You talk about having siblings, and you're the youngest, I guess, of the four. They all played sports, so pretty competitive household when it came to sports. And did that spill over into, I don't know, board games and other stuff? How competitive is your house?
I wouldn't say it was that competitive. It was just more like having fun with it. Like my oldest brother, like he watched a lot of sports, but like he didn't take basketball like as serious. And then my other brother, he did track and football, so like we might race or something like that to make that competitive. But other than that, it was just like fun.
Did you ever, I mean, you talk about your older brother playing football. Did you ever go the football route, or that wasn't for you ever?
They tried to get me to play football in middle school. My coaches, because they said in order to play basketball, you got to play football. But they was like, I guess they were just trying to make a team or something. So they forced me to play football. So I played football 7th and 8th grade year, and then after that,
now, how tall were you in 7th and 8th grade?
I say I was about 6'2", 6'3".
So I imagine on the football field, you're probably towering over most people. What position did they have you play?
I was receiver, but they never threw me the ball. So like, I was just like.
You would think a basketball guy would have good hands. They'd want to throw it to you.
I didn't want them to throw it to me.
You didn't want anything to do with it. Okay.
I was like, I'm just here so I can play basketball. So.
All right, so you go against Josh and Jenica every day in practice. It's got to be fun, the battles that you guys have. Josh, 2-time first team, A-10. Ojako, of course, played a couple years in the ACC, starting his career. Talk to me about what the battles in practice are like to make you guys, all three of you, making each other battle.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, I enjoy playing with Josh a lot because he's like very skillful. Like he can play in the perimeter and in the post. Like he's not like a regular big. So being able to guard him, like learning his moves and stuff. So like it just got me better at playing defense really, because like he used to give me buckets like almost every practice. And so like playing him and then playing Big G. Him being tall, physical, and stuff. So like, just trying to match his physicality and just try to keep up with them that's what I think really got me better a lot.
You weren't here yet when we were talking to Coach English earlier, but I'm supposed to ask you what you're supposed to do if you switch onto a guard out on the perimeter. He said you'd know the answer to this.
Oh, contest with a high hand. Leave a high hand up.
You passed the test, I think. Yeah. All right. Other than Eagle Bank, is there a favorite arena that you've enjoyed going to and playing in?
I would say Dayton. Dayton is one, and I enjoy playing at Auburn.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoy playing at Auburn.
That was a very good crowd down there. Yeah. What do you think the best win of the season was in your mind?
Dayton. Dayton.
Easy enough. All right, let's talk about growing up in Texas. We talked about your siblings. Obviously, Texas, good barbecue. Yeah. What's the go-to? Are you a brisket guy, a ribs guy, pulled chicken, pulled pork? What is it that if you're going to a cookout, a picnic, whatever, what are you looking for that they've got on the grill?
Ribs, of course, and brisket. And there's a lot of like grilled. I like grilled chicken too. And we got this one dish. It's called boudin. I don't know if anybody heard of it.
Boudin?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us what that is.
It's like shaped like a link, like a sausage.
Okay.
And it's like filled with like, I don't really know what's in it,
but it's good.
Yeah, it's delicious.
All right. So there's an argument all the time. Of course, every area thinks they have the best barbecue, whether it's Texas, Kansas City, North Carolina, on and on and on. Tell me why Texas barbecue is better than Kansas City, North Carolina, all these other places.
It's the best.
But what is it that you guys do that makes it so good?
I don't even know. It's just it tastes better than any other barbecue. I just know that for sure.
Have you found good barbecue here?
No.
Okay. Fair enough. Had to ask. Let's talk NCAA tournament. Who do you like?
I'm just watching. I'm really proud for my former teammates though. Tyler, Jordan.
Tyler Cole, who's at Marquette. Jordan Miller, who's down with Miami.
Yeah, I'm really proud. I'm just really excited to see them, and that's really it. And then I got some other friends too as well that's in the NCAA tournament.
Now, will you be like a lot of us that are here at the restaurant or watching home? Like when Thursday comes, I'm pretty much noon to midnight, and I've got the clicker going. I'm watching all through. Will you guys do that, or will you kind of check in here and there, maybe look at some scores, but you're not doing the marathon session of trying to watch every game?
I'm pretty sure me and Ron will be watching a marathon full of games and just sitting there chilling, kicking it.
Is there a hidden talent or hobby that people, maybe even Ronnie, who's one of your roommates, may not even know about? He might, but is there something that you have a hidden talent of that people don't know about?
No, I'm pretty sure everybody knows, like, my talent is dancing. I like to dance.
You're a dancing guy, all right.
To dance. That's the only talent.
Speaking of Ronnie and your other roommates, Chase and Blake, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. So all four of you guys are there. You're watching the games. Who gets the remote? Who's in charge of what you guys are watching? What game's going on? Is there arguments about it, or who's in control?
Nobody, really. I mean, somebody randomly might just pick it up and just change it to another game. I mean, unless it's like an intense game, we might argue about it, but there's really nobody. Probably might be Ron, matter of fact.
Well, it makes sense. Point guard. He's going to be in charge of whatever he's watching, right?
He's not no point guard in my room. He's not no point guard.
Which one of you guys is probably the clean freak, if there is one? It's you.
It's me.
So are you constantly then having to pick up after these guys? You're like, hey, man, don't leave your shoes out in the hallway.
Yes. We get cases of water. There's like half full water bottles everywhere in the living room. I'm like, all right, we're not doing this. We're not doing this.
Do you get any pushback from those guys, or is it usually?
Nah, he'll pick them up. Everybody else, I gotta like say a little bit more.
A little bit more.
He's straight. He done learn.
Blake, obviously being from Australia.
Yeah.
Does he use? Are there any phrases that you guys had to get used to that he will say? And you're like, I don't even know what that means. And conversely, have you tried to teach him American slang?
No, I just learned from Blake that he can talk American. So like that was weird to me because like.
You mean without an accent?
Yeah, he didn't have an accent. Like he said something and I just like looked at him like I didn't know who he was. And then, but I really got used to Blake and how he talks because he was here last year. So he ain't really said nothing. Like I'm like looking at him like, what does that mean? But yeah.
So going in now, it's the end of the season. Obviously, you guys are done. But looking forward, you'll be here next year. Ronnie's going to be back next year. You guys have a pretty good core returning. How confident are you in this team moving forward now, year 3 coming up?
I'm a lot more confident now that we've shown like what we can do, going on a 7-game win streak and beating like one of the best teams in our conference. So I'm a lot more confident now than what I was in the past.
Coach talked about during that 7-game win streak that one of the things that you guys worked on after the Duquesne game was huddling up.
Yeah.
Whether it was a free throw, out of bounds, whatever it is. I asked him about if there was one particular moment or practice that kind of jump-started that winning streak. Is there a moment, a practice, a situation that you felt at the time that maybe you and you talked to your teammates at all and said, I think we got this figured out. We're playing pretty good ball right now.
I mean, I feel like we really figured it out once we started hanging out outside of basketball. Like, we played GW after Duquesne, right?
You know what? I'm not remembering that. Somebody else would have to remember that.
We probably
Rhode Island, right? That was
like,
up on the road. Yep.
It was on the road after Duquesne. Yeah,
GW. Okay.
So after like we just like because the older guys were saying like we don't really kick it like on the road games and stuff. So like at the GW, we was out all at the hotel, we was chilling in one room. And then, like, we was just bonding, just laughing about random stuff. And then that next day, like, we were just playing, like, we just locked them down. Like, I just felt like the energy from us just hanging out, us building chemistry, like, that just carried us on to the court and stuff.
Good answer. Well, Malik, we're looking forward again to having you back next year. Again, great season for you. 32 games, 4 starts, career highs, rebounds, scoring, the whole thing. Thank you for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. You are off the hot seat, and thank you very much. So, Malik Henry joining us here. Thanks to the Capitol Ale House, the official host site for the Mason Basketball Coaches Show with head coach Kim English, just a mile and a half from Eagle Bank Arena. The Capitol Ale House has local Virginia-inspired dishes and the largest selection of Virginia craft beer available. So once again, we thank Malik Henry for joining us. Did he answer the question right?
Well, 2 things. First of all, Kansas City barbecue is the best.
Wow.
I'm not sure.
Some bold words.
Malik, have you ever had barbecue in Kansas City? What about Memphis? What about North Carolina? So how's he even inadequate?
He knows not to because Texas is the best, so why would he have those other
And
ones?
secondly, when he and Ronald are watching the NCAA tournament Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, hopefully they are seething. They're seething and imagining and preparing to not be watching it next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's what we need to be doing this week. And we are. He was right. We are rooting for Tyler and Jordan with Miami and Marquette. Super, super happy for those guys and all their success. Still text them after almost every big win. So,
You heard his answer as far as what he thought the turning point was for the team, and it was just them hanging out together as a group.
yeah, and it's sad that we have to kind of encourage that now. It used to just be what you did in college basketball. You hang out with your teammates every waking hour. You were together all year from June to June. From June to June, we're together. But what I don't think people realize is how the pandemic affected every area of our lives. Obviously, what we know, but on a team, it affected how our young men behaved, our young men and women. Team meals just used to be what we did.
Right.
We had 2.5 seasons of you get your food, you go back to your room. Our guys got so comfortable being isolated because they had to be isolated. I mean, last season, they didn't even have roommates on the road because we were so protective and social distance. But so when all those things were lifted, those bans were lifted and those restrictions were gone, they just stayed in isolation.
Right.
So you get fragmented teams. You don't get teams that yell at their teammate when a back screen is taking place. And I used to joke with the guys. I say, yo, make sure we're kicking it with Coop. Like, if I were in college, Coop would be like one of my favorite teammates. Like, I just love Coop. He's so cool. He loved a hoop. He's funny. I love Coop. So I would tell the guys, yo, make sure we're kicking it with Coop tonight. And I guess they did. They did, and it absolutely, like I said, our team got closer. They got more together. And, I think it was a really cool thing to see.
Couple of questions from the fan base. Ryan wants to know, what are some of the top priorities entering year 3, both on and off the court?
On the court, it's just continuing to take steps, in areas that we know translate to winning, and it's just our habits. One is how hard we play, how tough we play, and how disciplined we play on both sides of the ball. It's just continue to take steps, depending on what our roster ends up looking like, mainly at the 5 spot with Josh or without Josh, that'll change what we do offensively a little bit if Josh is here or not. And, off the court, it's what we just talked about, continuing to become a more tight-knit unit, amongst ourselves, continuing to get more, engraved in the community in Fairfax and Northern Virginia, so we get more people to buy season tickets. We got some work to do when this new freshman class gets on campus. We're going to be a part of orientation, teaching the student section how to behave, how to be loud. We give a pretty good product, especially at home. And, we want our spot to look like Dayton, really, So I'm really excited about this offseason to get to work. I mean, we were in, the office today. So yeah, we got back Saturday. We were off Sunday. I pulled up at 8:30, and every assistant coach had beat me in to the office this morning. So yeah, we're really excited to get to work.
You talked about, telling the guys to hang out with Coop.
Yeah.
He's not going to be here, obviously, next year. So who's now the next ringleader that you want them hanging out with? Make sure they're hanging with.
If Ticket's back, it'll be hang out with Ticket. If Ticket's back.
Paulina asks, what was your most memorable part of this season? Malik said it was the Dayton game. What would it be for you?
It's just all of the victories, all of the victories. So much goes into preparing for a game. And honestly, some of the losses, I can't point to one moment. Winning at Dayton didn't feel better than winning at GW or Rhode Island or at Richmond. Honestly, probably it was the win at Richmond. It was the win at Richmond. It was that moment because you couldn't have wrote it better. I mean, without Josh last season, Ticket at 17 points in a great game and put the ball in his hands to win the game, and he missed a wide open layup. And we go and lose on a 3. And I never, ever stay on the court after loss. I usually just walk. But this game, for whatever, I decided to stick around. And a Richmond fan said something very, very nasty to Ticket as he was leaving the court. And I grabbed him, and we just swallowed our pride, and we took our L, and we walked off the court. And a year later, for him to hit a game-winning layup with his right hand on the same basket in the same gym, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. We've had a couple of moments like that where it was truly a redemptive moment. He said it. Ticket missed. I keep killing you, Ticket here. Ticket missed game-winning free throws in the SEC semifinals his sophomore year in Tennessee, and then the next year at Maryland, he was at the free throw line and he made 2 game-winning free throws. And so he has a knack he has a flair for the dramatics, but he's had a few redemptive moments. And I'm going to watch film of this season to try to see if we can find some more redemptive moments for him to go into next year.
Speaking of next year, give us...
if he's back. Sorry, I keep saying that. I don't even know if he's back yet. If he's back.
Looking to next year. Give me some updates, some analysis on the guys that you have coming in. I'll start first with Austin Ball. Tell us about him.
I love the guys we have coming in. And first and foremost, his spirit. Austin has an incredible spirit. He's 6'6". He's a big-time shooter and a big-time charge taker. I mean, he flies around the court just trying to make defensive hustle plays. He's big-time charge taker, but he's a really, really, really good shooter. We looked at our roster today. May have 3 guys on next year's roster total that aren't good three-point shooters. Great three-point shooters, maybe 3 guys total. Maybe 2. if Malik wants to keep giving me looks like he's going to work on his 3 game. But Austin he's a really, really, really good shooter of the basketball.
Des White.
Another elite shooter, deep range, really good shooter, really tough. Reminds me of one of my teammates at Missouri, Marcus Denman, a tough Missouri kid, big-time shooter.
And finally, Richard Barron.
Richard is another really good shooter, different build than the other 2. He's a Mack truck. I mean, he's a great build, 6'6", 230 maybe, but he's a brick house, and he can really shoot it.
I'm sure you guys already have targets for 2024 and beyond, obviously. But tell me about what the recruiting period is like for your coaches, because I'm not sure some people realize how much goes into what you guys have to do all summer long.
Yeah, recruiting never stops. It never stops. So 24, 25, we're very fortunate to be in the area that we are, where it's such a wealth of talent right here playing high school basketball in D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. And we want them. So once our roster is set, this in the next few weeks, and we know exactly who we have, for next season, we'll start looking at and really honing in on our 2024 targets.
Let's talk a little NCAA tournament before we get out of here. Obviously, everything starts tomorrow for the first round games, but will you be like the rest of the guys and from noon to midnight on Thursday?
No, it's really hard for me to watch basketball after we go out.
Okay.
I watch like 15 minutes of St. Louis VCU. I watch the end. I like to see teams win championships. So I watch the end of it. I like to see that celebration as kind of a motivator for me. I watch the selection show just to see, to learn when it comes to scheduling what you can. It's a lot. You can see what the committee values and who they assign what, and it's the eight. We have to be perfect in the Atlantic 10 in the non-conference. Like, I think it's a joke that VCU's a 12 seed. To win our league by 3 games and be a 12 seed is it's incredible. I think VCU, I think Dayton, I think St. Louis is more rewarding than a sub 500 conference team from the power conference level, like without question. But we got to be better. We have to continue to schedule the way we have in the non-league, and we have to be better. At the start of the season, we can't lose 3 games in our MTE. You know, we have to win neutral games, we have to win road games, and we have to continue to try to get quad 1 opponents as much as we can. So I'm not watching it as a fan. I'll watch it as a coach. You know, I want to see what Alabama does that makes their offense and rebounding so good.
When you sit down and kind of go through these things, will it be pad and paper, stealing things, or not really?
I'm visual. I can see stuff and remember it, and I'll go back maybe the next day. I do have a notes app in my phone. If I am watching the game, I'll take times down or put themes down. But if I see stuff, I pretty much remember it. As far as it goes to scheduling, and yeah, we have that done. We see exactly the teams, the last 5, 6 teams in. We know what the numbers say for all the teams that aren't in Power 6 conferences. We see exactly what their schedules look like, so we can learn from a Utah State. We can learn from a Nevada and how they schedule to a FAU to see how they get, you know, virtually in that large seat.
I imagine you'll probably check in on your Missouri team.
I will. I'll check out Mizzou. I'll check out Tennessee. I'll check out Colec. I've been watching Marquette closely. I love the way they play. I love the way Shaka's using them, and Joy Miller as well, and Coach L.
Do you want to give us any hints on the schedule for next year? Can you give us any hints on the schedule for next year?
We go to Toledo. We know that. We go to Toledo, and
still a work in progress. Then there's still opportunities for you to grab some teams?
The schedule's worked on. Yes, and it's even later now because everyone tries to hold out because you don't know what rosters are going to look like. So now the NCAA, with the change, will know what rosters look like in May, but everyone tries to hold out on scheduling a little bit longer. We don't want to, lock into a game, and then a team gets like 5, whatever. But
how tough is that whole portal thing?
I don't think it's tough at all. I think it's great. I think it's great.
I mean, tough as far as, like, you may not know when you walked off the court Thursday after losing St. Louis. Years ago, you would know, okay, this guy's going to be back, this guy. You don't know whether it's Ticket or Josh taking their last year or not taking it, or you don't know. Yeah, I mean, the stress of.
That's just a conversation. That's the thing. It's not that I'm not stressed about it because we have great dialogue. I was there the first day Ticket ever walked on a college campus. I was right there. Josh is like a little brother. I love his family like I love my own. We have great dialogue. We talk all season, and it's not hard. You do right by guys. You give them your all, and I don't think you'll have mass exodus of players that you don't want to leave your program. If it's not about me recruiting Josh to stay at George Mason, when we talk, it's about us making the best decision for him in his life.
Right.
He gave George Mason 4 really good years. I think you could argue honestly, I don't think it's an argument. I think he is the best player at George Mason in the Atlantic 10 era. It's about making the best decision for his life. If it's going pro, if it's coming back to school, whatever it is. Like I think it'd be shallow if my approach was to always to be just me. I want it to be what's best for him, what's best for Ticket. You know, when I first got here, what was best for Tyler Kolek? What do you want? You know, and I love all these guys.
I think there are I shouldn't say very few coaches. I think it's not exactly the majority of coaches that would still keep in touch with guys who left their program and are continuing to have success, like you do with Jordan, like you do with Tyler.
Yep.
I think that makes a world of difference because people on the outside looking in are going to go, that's the type of program I want to play for.
Yeah, I mean, A.J. Wilson, he was at one of our games wearing a Mason jersey. You know, all those guys. Yeah, if you've ever put on a Mason uniform, we're part of the same brotherhood family. And, you know, I'm happy for all those guys. You know, when Jordan's home in Loudoun County, obviously he's welcome to come work out at our facility. And Coach L, I mean, I root for Coach L. I feel connected. You know, Coach Caputo, when we played him, Dave Paulson, when we just played him the other day, like, it's not vitriolic at all. Right. Like, I mean, I want those guys to have success.
Just not when they're playing.
Only not us, obviously. Yeah. Exactly. I don't want Fordham to beat us, you know. But I root for those guys. Well,
Coach, again, heck of a year. We go back to it, longest winning streak since 2016-17, longest winning streak in the A10 ever. 20 wins for the first time since 16-17. All in all, obviously not where you want to be, but still pretty good second year.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Jeff O'Beer, Tyler Rubin, Roth, Mark LaFrance, all you guys for coming out here every week, making this thing happen. You guys over there pushing buttons and screens and doing things that I could never do. I just appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Coach. We'll leave it there unless you have any final words for the fans out there.
No, I appreciate all the fans. You came to a lot of these. I appreciate you taking the time out. Capitol Ale House, thank you. And let's do it again next season.
All right, there you go. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Kim English Coaches Show. We'll be back with you next season. Once again, we want to thank the Capitol Ale House, the official host site for the Mason Basketball Coaches Show with head coach Kim English. Just a mile and a half from Eagle Bank Arena, the Capitol Ale House has Virginia-inspired dishes and the largest selection of Virginia-brewed craft beer available. Thank you for hanging out with us. We'll see you in the fall.